I'm going to let you know how the eviction moratorium affected landlords in the first quarter of 2021. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it comes out of tenantcloud.com. Now, for those who don't use Tenant Cloud, it is a property management software company that, really helps out small landlords such as myself. The software is actually free. I don't get paid from Tenant Cloud, but I do use the product. I do like the product, and so I just like to tell people about products that I like using. So, I would check it out if I was you. I mean, it is free. It's a nice app on your phone and has a little bit more detailed stuff if you get on the desktop version, but it's pretty good, especially for those of us who are self-managing. So anyway, their news and blog section has an article, and it says how eviction moratoriums affected landlords in Q1 2021. I get their newsletter and the email, so I get a lot of interesting little articles, and it usually helps out a lot seeing stuff like this because it goes more into what landlords are experiencing versus what a lot of the newspaper articles are doing, which is focusing on what the tenants are experiencing. For many mom and pop rental owners, federal and state eviction moratoriums have taken a staggering toll. The National Low-Income Housing Coalition said that by the end of December 2020, renters owed landlords $30 to $70 billion in back rent, and this number has certainly increased in 2021 quarter one. According to the Census Bureau, close to 20% of adult renters didn't pay rent in February. Renters are, on average, 4 months behind in rent with a balance of $5,600. And as back rent increases, it's likely most renters will never be able to pay the rental payment debt they've incurred and continue to incur. Yeah, they're not going to be able to pay it. I mean, there's no way. We're talking about a lot of lower income people are renters, and they're just going to be too far behind. So the best thing that we can hope for right now is that there's some sort of government stimulus. They're the ones who started this mess. They're the ones who put the eviction moratoriums in place. So they need to make things right with the landlords, at least for those of us who can't cover the losses from all this lost rent. Since small independent property owners own more than half of the nation's rental units, this is a large group at financial risk. With less money coming in than expected, many landlords are spending more money than they are making in rental income, draining savings or buffer funds they once had. The moratorium extensions on the federal level, if not the state, are bringing many landlords to their breaking points. Looking forward, the prospect of collecting back rent seems dismal. The debt load many renters are under will take a long time to pay off, if they ever do. Without current and projected rental incomes, what's the risk for landlords? Yeah, there's a lot of risk for landlords, and I've gone over it in many of the other videos that I've created, and the biggest risk is, the worst possible risk is foreclosure and bankruptcy, basically destroying the credit of the landlord. So let's see what this article says about the topic. If landlords don't receive enough rental income to pay a mortgage, foreclosure is a devastating possibility. For every rental dollar paid, 38 cents on average go towards a mortgage payment. The more dollars in unpaid rent, the less money there is for landlords to make the mortgage payment. Foreclosure is a worst case scenario for everyone involved, not just the landlord. The landlord loses the rental unit, the tenant loses a residence, and the lender loses an investment. Yeah, that's exactly the truth right there. Everybody loses if the landlord loses the property. The renter loses the place to live. The landlord loses, their financial status, everything, and the lender even loses money. So yeah, it's devastating. And if this happens on a large scale throughout the country, it could crash the entire market. It could cause a depression. That is not what we want to see, especially after what happened back in 2008. Property taxes. If landlords can't pay property taxes, again, they could lose their property. Since property tax money goes to local governing bodies, these governing bodies could put a lien on the unit to collect money owed. Additionally, without this money, there's less funding for public services. Property taxes generally supply money for services like fire departments, water, sewer, roads, police departments, and the like. Underfunded fire departments could put residents at risk for obvious reasons. Yeah, that's an unintended consequence that a lot of these governments didn't even think about when they put these eviction moratoriums in place. How exactly is someone supposed to pay a property tax when they themselves are not getting paid? Okay? I mean, that doesn't even make sense. They're like, hey, we're going to put this eviction moratorium in place. No, you're not going to be able to make any money while it's going on, but your tax bill is still due. Like, hey, you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth. You took away my source of income, and yet you're demanding that I pay taxes. That is completely ridiculous. Okay, and if nothing else, these local governments, if they were going to do this, they should have put a pause on property tax payments for affected landlords. Okay, that would have at least relieved one of the problems. But no, they demand their money. They don't even realize what they did by putting the eviction moratorium into place, because they don't understand finances. They don't understand how anything works. They wanted a feel good thing to get them votes, and they put this stupid stuff into place like this without thinking of the consequences. Capital improvement projects. Capital improvement projects go beyond typical maintenance, but they can still be essential items that need attention, and they can be very costly. If there are large issues resulting in replacing an entire HVAC system or large plumbing areas or extensive electrical work, these capital improvement projects would need immediate attention and funding. For landlords who have no resources to fall back on if one of these projects comes up unexpectedly, it will be a very difficult road. Yeah, and I can just go over so many examples of this happening to me. I had air conditioning unit go out, right, costing me $1,400 to replace. I had a heater go out, and it costing me a couple grand. Right now I have a house where there is 2 to 3 inches of standing water sitting in the basement after a hard rainfall. Imagine if I wasn't getting paid anything right now, or if I had gone 5-6 months without getting any rent. I have no income coming in, yet I'm expected still to go into that property and fix those things for this tenant. And if I didn't have the money to do it, if I didn't have enough emergency reserves to cover 6 months to a year or over a year of not getting rent, I would be ruined. Okay, the property would have to either be sold, or I would face foreclosure, because there would be nothing that I could do. And it's really the fault of these local governments that are putting these things into place without providing any sort of stimulus. All right, so here is another interesting article, and this one is coming out of Maine from a website called The County, and it says, pandemic ban prevents eviction of tenants from condemned house. Now, before I get started, please go ahead, hit that subscribe and like button, and I'm going to keep trying to bring you great articles about the eviction moratorium and the eviction crisis and other interesting news that I can find from across the country about landlords and real estate investing. Even though people have been living in a condemned Presque Isle home on Elm Street without power or water since last year, city officials said they are limited in what they can do because of the state's current ban on eviction moratorium or on evictions. During Wednesday night's city council meeting, a woman who lives next to the Elm Street property shared her concerns about growing mountains of trash and the noxious sound of a generator buzzing round the clock at the house. Wow. I mean, this sounds pretty bad. The place has no water, no power. There's trash piled up everywhere. And now they're using a generator to provide some sort of power inside the place. The people won't move out there. I mean, they just sound like homeless squatters, and they can't be evicted because of the eviction moratorium. Okay, I mean, this is completely ridiculous. So, they do have a picture of this house here in this article, and I'll throw it up on the screen over here so that you can see what it looks like from the outside. But, I mean, it looks like a dump. It sounds like the people, they are doing pretty bad inside of it. After distributing photos of the property and surrounding trash, Paige Huston played audio recordings of the generator. She hears it from her bedroom and when she steps out her back door, explaining that the noise keeps her awake and that even calls to the police have failed to stop the incessant sounds. One evening in April, I called 4 times, she said. Actually, on Monday of this week when I called, they asked if they were running their large generator or their small generator. Also unacceptable. Like, come on here. Does it really matter which generator they were running? I mean, the truth of the matter is that, I mean, it's unsafe. I mean, the place is condemned. They need to have somebody from the city inspections come out and put just kick those people out of there. Because, I mean, there's going to be a house fire or maybe a carbon monoxide poisoning or something dangerous is going to happen inside of that place because it's condemned. There shouldn't be people on the inside of there and they're allowing those people to stay. I mean, this is ridiculous. You know, the pandemic restrictions shouldn't be that strict where you can't get rid of people in a situation like this. An emotional Huston detailed all the steps she took before bringing the matter to city council, including contacting code enforcement, calling police about noise, and making a trash complaint. This issue needs to be addressed, and I do not feel it has been, she said, adding she understands that there are limitations caused by the pandemic, but the house has been condemned for 18 months. This is a city overlooking and neglecting something, she said. I'm a reasonable human, but I'm at the end of my rope, so I would like some answers. Yeah, she did everything right. You know, she contacted code enforcement. She contacted the police. You know, I mean, what more can you expect her to do? She's a neighbor. She has to put up with this every single day. Okay, yeah, the city council might not care because they don't live in that neighborhood. They don't have to put up with the noise from the generator or, you know, this dilapidated house. And you know, I mean, it's just not acceptable. Okay, now my real question is, who is the landlord for this property? You know, who is the owner of this property? You know, I mean, I would be pissed. You know, I would do anything I could to get these people out of there. But you know, the article hasn't gone over that yet. Council expressed concerns about the property and asked code enforcement officials about city ordinances related to this issue. Councilman Michael Chase asked if there are any regulations against living in a house without power, water, and sewer, but city code enforcement officer George Howe said there are none. The property was condemned prior to COVID-19, and when those people moved in, they knew it was condemned at the time, Howe said. Then COVID struck. There was really nothing I could do, and the governor's order was not to evict. I was kind of dead in the water. Okay, so how is it that somebody can move into a house that's condemned? I mean, I thought those places were unfit for habitation and that it wouldn't even be legal to move into a place that was condemned. I mean, maybe I'm not getting something from this article, but, you know, they're not explaining the whole situation here. The current tenants previously owned the home until 2016. The property was condemned on August 13, 2019 and was tax acquired as of November 24, 2020. The tenants entered into an agreement to pay back taxes. Okay, so maybe I should have just gone a paragraph ahead because that explained a little bit. So the current tenants used to own the place. It looks like the place was condemned because of unpaid property taxes. And then it says that it was tax acquired. So my only guess is that the tenant somehow acquired it during an auction, and maybe they didn't acquire. Somehow somebody acquired this property, and the tenants were able to move back into it. I don't know who. Eviction notices would apply, except the governor's order prevents the city from evicting when the tenant is paying the city what is owed, said Director of Economic and Community Development Galen Weibley, adding that the city owns the Elm Street property, but the tenants are making payments for a buyback agreement for the deed. Okay, there we go. That's the explanation I was looking for. So the city owns the property, probably because they weren't paying the taxes, right? And then the tenants entered into a buyback agreement with the city to buy the property back from them for, I guess, the taxes that are owed. And So therefore, the city itself is the landlord, and the tenants are the former owners. So yeah, I mean this is a messed up situation. So the tenant or the city won't file eviction on these tenants because essentially the tenants are buying the property back from them, and there's nothing in city code enforcement against having no water, no sewer, or anything. My question is like the trash and the garbage, and if I don't keep my house up to a certain standard, like if the grass is overgrown or something, the city will come down and start citing me. So I don't see anything about that here in this article saying these people are getting cited. So I mean that's a insane situation, but man, I mean basically these people are living like they're homeless up in this dilapidated house, and they can't be evicted. I mean, this isn't a normal landlord situation, so but it does kind of show you how far the protections from the eviction moratorium will go, and the same thing that the city is struggling with right now, landlords are probably struggling with up in Maine as well. So yeah, this is something definitely to look out for, and crazy story.